I know what you're thinking. This watch should be in the junk pile, and you won't be wrong. In fact, I think this is exactly where it came from. Hi guys, this is the Bearded Watchmaker, where we try and restore where we can, or rebuild when we must, those tired, sad, and neglected watches. This is the first installment of the Wreck to Wrist series, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the journey as we dive deep into the sorry watch and see where it ends. Now, while I agree, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I honestly don't see it. And it would have been the same even if the watch was brand new. I don't like the look of it, and it would appear that it was gold at some point, which is also something I don't do. I don't do gold at all. What is lurking there is a waffle dial. So that looks interesting. That looks like something we can save. So let's dig into it and see what we can find. Turning this watch around. Yeah, now you can see why I don't want to use this case. Clearly there's been a lot of removal of material, I would say. And digging a bit deeper, I see this case is brass, so it was brass and gold plating. No wonder that there's so much material eaten away from sweat, body, DNA, whatever the case may be. What we do see is that it's got a clear case back, and it's marked as 7S36, which is pretty much the only reason why I was semi-interested in this watch. I've got a lot of 7S26, but not 7S36. What I do see that doesn't make sense is that the rotor is marked 7S26. And as we'll see later, this is in fact the newer 7S36 with a wrong rotor on it. So yeah, there's been some messing around with this watch sometime in the past. So doing what I plan to be doing with this watch makes me feel a hell of a lot less bad. And enough about that. Let's get to the fun stuff. Let's get this case back off, and using my bowl suction tool, I can quickly unscrew this case back, and we can get our first look inside and see what disaster awaits us. And of course the stem is broken. Sheesh. This wouldn't be a revival video without a broken stem. It probably sets the tone for the rest of the watch, doesn't it, huh? Alright, well, let's get the movement out of the case. At least that broken stem is handy for something. Well, the dial is okay-ish, but geez, look at those hands. There's gold there, some, which may or may not clean off or clean up a bit, but that loom is horrible. Clearly there's a watch relooming job in the future of this watch as well. Oh dear. Loose minute hand? How? Oh my goodness. Alright, let's carry on. Next step, let's get those hands off. Now, what I prefer doing is using a little plastic bag and then using those hand removal tools that you see there. That's the safest way to get those hands off without damaging the dial underneath. Now, you can argue that the dial is already not great, but you know, we try and save what we can. Let's just stick to that. With those hands removed, I can start taking the dial off, which is press fit into that black spacer ring that you see there. You'll also see a little bit of corrosion on the rotor already. So, yes, gently, very, very, very gently, I start prying the dial off. Oof, more signs of corrosion. You could see the legend there on the date wheel has already started coming off. Looking at it dial now from a different angle, you could see the nice waffle pattern on it. It's shiny, it's not matte, but I think it's actually a lot better than I thought initially. Hope for us yet, huh? Finally, we can start getting into the guts of this movement. What I want to do is take that little circlip off first. Once that's done, I can remove the day wheel. Without boring you to tears explaining what each and every part here is, let me just quickly run through the top plate and get all these parts off. I'll catch up with you just now. And the last part to come off is the crown wheel, and you use a Presto tool to remove it, as that crown wheel is friction fit on the seconds wheel. Last job to do before we get to the bottom plate is just to take this plastic spacer off, which literally just clips off, as you'll see. I flipped over the movement, so the first thing to do is get that rotor off. And, ooh, look at all of that rust there. This is going to suck. The balance wheel does move, but on closer inspection, looking at the hairspring, I see a lot of gunk there and it looks like rust. As you can see, this wheel's not moving like it should. Well, first things first, let's get that balance bridge off and put it away somewhere safe. And then I'll quickly run through removing all the parts on the bottom. I'll go into a bit more detail with the damaged parts under the microscope a bit later so that we can see what we're in for. there we go. You undoubtedly saw all the rusted parts that I had to take off there. And that plate's not looking too great either. Anyway, next up is to take apart the Autoworks bridge. And you want to be real careful with this circlip. It's another one of those millions of watch parts that just loves flying when they come apart. The pull lever and cam usually looks pretty gunked up when I take these apart, but man, this one is probably the worst I've ever seen. Clear signs of water ingress, if you weren't convinced yet. Just look at the play there between the pull lever and the cam. That watch won't auto-wind, no matter how much you try, so these parts will need to be replaced. The last part left over is the mainspring, or the mainspring barrel. Now, generally Seiko didn't design these to be taken apart. In their mind, it's easier just to replace the whole barrel assembly. And truth be told, it's about 10-15 pounds just for the whole thing. But yeah, what kind of restoration assembly would this be if I don't show you how to take it apart? Now, clearly you can see this is fiddly. You need a knife edge to separate the two, the top and the bottom part of the barrel. And careful with those fingers. With that done, we can carefully remove the arbor. And trust me on this one, you really want to be careful, because when that spring comes out, it comes out violently. Now that the barrel is removed, we can slowly start taking out the mainspring from the barrel. And you basically do this coil for coil. Now you start the first 1 or 2 coils with a tweezer, while with the other hand pressing or pinching the balance of the coils with your thumb. And once you start the process, you can release the coils very, very slowly and carefully, as I'm showing you on the screen here. Just as you get to the end, this is the part where you really need to be very careful, because at the end of the spring, you've got a reasonably long bridle, which is a lot stiffer than the rest of the spring. And if you don't carefully and slowly remove that, it can actually snap off the spring where the bridle meets it. Right, guys, so let's move on to the microscope. And here you can see the rust and decay on that first reduction wheel for the Autoworks. There, when my tweezer is pointing, you could actually see how the metal has been worn away. Looking at the pull lever where it meets that reduction wheel, look at the amount of play that exists there. That's not going to work. One of the train of wheels. Second reduction wheel for the Autoworks. You could see how the pull levers actually ate away at the teeth of the gear. Yeah, serious damage. Now we're onto the main plate, and clearly you can see where the water came in. It came in from the stem side. This water has spread all around the outside of the plate as well. And gonna need some work to try and clean up all of these jewels and mounting areas. Now, what I forgot to record was that stud actually being loose, and it actually dropped out as I was handling the main plate. So that had to be remounted as well. Finally, we're looking at the balance, and ouch, it's not looking good. The wheel itself, it looks like there's some scraping on it. I don't know if it's scraping or dirt or what. The hairspring is full of rust. But not only that, it looks like it's bent. It's bunched up at the top and it's loose at the bottom. And there's no ways I'm going to sit and try and straighten all of that out. So I'm just going to be replacing the whole balance hairspring assembly. That should make for an interesting video, because that's tough. Well, there she's disassembled in all its pieces, and yeah, not that many parts, to be honest. And this is what I'm going to be replacing. Replacements on hand. Well, guys, that's the end of part 1.